Hello everyone, welcome to the Lightning Ball channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so and activate the notification bell. Your support fuels my continued efforts. In our last episode, we discussed the betrayal of Demon Lord Dino, who attempted to abduct Rimuru and destroy the Labyrinth. However, just as he was about to successfully touch Rimuru, Dino realized he had been ensnared in Zijin's illusional world all along. Ultimately, Zijin arrived and killed Dino, but thanks to the resurrection bracelet, Dino was revived outside the labyrinth. Feeling intimidated, he decided to flee. This episode concludes the battle within the labyrinth. Let's get started. Dino hurried towards the battlefield where his comrades Pico and Gracia were engaged in combat with the newly awakened Geld and Kumara. Barrier Lord Geld and the muscular warrior Gracia were locked in a fierce struggle. Geld was covered in blood, yet no wounds were visible. Dino was initially puzzled by this but soon noticed something amiss in the battle. Gracia wielded her sword with her right hand, shield in the left, and launched a sword attack at Geld. Geld, unflustered, raised his custom-made scale shield to block, only to find that Gracia's attack was imbued with will-breaking magic, rendering mere physical defense ineffective. The shield resisted only briefly before being sliced in two by Gracia's sword, which also severed Geld's arm. Nonetheless, Geld remained unfazed, discarding the broken shield and pulling out a new one from his stomach to resume his stance. In a blink, his arm was fully restored, thanks to his ultra-speed regeneration. Caught off guard by these bizarre events, Gracia was momentarily taken aback. Seizing the opportunity, Geld swung his meat crusher in a wide arc, aiming for Gracia. Just as the blow was about to land, Gracia moved swiftly, raising her round shield diagonally to deflect Geld's attack. Capitalizing on the recoil, Gracia aimed her sword at Geld's unprotected head, intending to end it with a single strike. In a critical moment, Geld tilted his head to dodge the fatal blow, then used his meat crusher to block Gracia's follow-up horizontal swing. The clash of their weapons sparked fiercely, sending shockwaves across the ground. In a scene almost beyond belief, Gracia marveled at Geld's wounds healing instantaneously despite the damage inflicted. She couldn't help but find Geld's resilience bizarre. Geld, ever so stoic, wondered aloud if he should commend Gracia for her forceful strikes. After exchanging several blows, both Geld and Gracia launched into a frenzied assault, each targeting the other's vulnerabilities without regard for their own injuries, their swords clashing in a relentless dance of attack and defense. Dino, watching from the sidelines, was dumbstruck. Aware of the quirks within the Monster Federation, he hadn't anticipated an ostensibly inconsequential orc to possess the might akin to an awakened demon lord, casting doubts on whether Feldway's strategy was thoroughly deliberated or merely impulsive. Above Dino, an intense aerial duel unfolded between Pico and Kumara. Pico voiced her amazement at Kumara's ability to fly despite lacking wings. The odd pairing of the alluring Kumara and childlike Pico was as striking as their evident disparity, fueling a fiercely contested battle. As Pico concluded her chant, she unleashed the Black Thunder spell. Dark clouds amassed above Kumara, unleashing a deluge of black lightning, scorching the earth within a 50-meter radius to cinders. Curiously, the space surrounding Kumara remained untouched, as if sanctified, repelling the invading lightning. Bursting from the storm, Kumara, as smooth as flowing water, brandished her 9 tails in a flurry of slashes aimed at Pico. Their attacks collided, emitting a shrill clash of forces, with Kumara's offensive thwarted by Pico's spear defenses. Witnessing the deadlock between the combatants, Dino couldn't help but conclude a disturbing truth about the Monster Federation. Not a single one here among them was normal. They were all formidable beings. Indeed, it wasn't just one or two individuals posing a threat but every single one of them. Both Gracia and Pico, members of the 7 Angels of Origin, possessed might that beyond awakened demon lords. Yet, they found themselves embroiled in arduous battles, indicating that their opponent's strength was beyond what had been anticipated. The deviation in their plan was apparent, especially since the objectives to abduct Rimuru and assassinate Masayuki had already failed. Even if they were to win these battles, it would hold no strategic value. Realizing this, Dino yelled out to both Gracia and Pico, urging them to retreat with him. The sudden call to retreat left them both momentarily stunned, each critiquing Dino for issuing such a defeatist command just as they were about to exert their full strength. Dino openly admitted the failure of their plan, pressing for an immediate withdrawal. Pico, shocked by the revelation, struggled to believe that a plan crafted by the perfectionist Feldway, alongside Zalario and Cornu, involving 6 of the 7 angels of origin, could fail. Dino, nonchalantly, confirmed the failure, noting Cornu's likely demise and the unfulfilled objectives, insisting on a swift retreat. The proclamation of failure brought a look of pride to Geld and Kumara, while Gracia and Pico were left speechless. However, Pico quickly realized Dino's own defeat. Dino's indifferent and unapologetic demeanor frustrated Pico, yet Dino lamented Pico's lack of empathy. Gracia, known for her fiery temper, was at a loss for words, but they weren't foolish enough to doubt Dino's word. After cooling down, they accepted the suggestion to retreat. Gracia, not without a hint of irritation, warned Geld not to assume victory, while Geld acknowledged Gracia's effort in simultaneously fighting and hindering the Labyrinth's repair, promising a rematch where both could fight at their fullest. Satisfied with Geld's response, Gracia acknowledged their mutual respect and bid a congenial farewell. Meanwhile, Pico and Kumara exchanged glares before turning away. Thus, Dino and his companions successfully retreated. Let's shift our focus to the battlefield of Trany, Cherries, and Zalario. Unlike the tense atmosphere elsewhere, the battle here had reached a desperate situation. Trany and Cherries had not awakened, and facing the super-awakened Zalario, they were not only overpowered in strength but also completely unable to inflict decisive damage due to the angels' suppression over the elves. It seemed the battle could no longer be turned around. Aware of the vast gap in power, Cherries drew inspiration from his rigorous training under Rimuru-sama and Veldora-sama, vowing never to give up despite the dire circumstances. His unyielding spirit, in turn, inspired Trany, prompting both to resolve to keep fighting. On the other side, Zalario, irked by their refusal to concede, had restrained his power, aware of their resurrection bracelets, which would nullify any fatal blow by reviving them. However, Zalario surmised that with Dino's mission to abduct Ramirez likely completed, and with Ramirez removed out of the labyrinth, their bracelets would cease to function. Thinking of this, Zalario declared victory, acknowledging his opponents while also stating that if they think they could keep reviving through the resurrection bracelet, they were gravely mistaken. He intended to deliver a swift end as a form of mercy from a superior being. However, Cherries still remained confident at this moment. Cherries recalled the days of reading manga with Veldora-sama, where there was a typical taboo against declaring victory before actually winning. At that time, they concluded that there were certain things one should never say, including acting as if one had already won when victory was near. Zalario found himself at a loss for words facing Cherries' seemingly delusional optimism, unable to grasp the foolhardy hope that miracles could still happen under such dire circumstances. Yet Cherries, bolstered by the memory of Rimuru-sama's many miraculous victories, remained unfazed, convinced that persistence could bring about a favorable turn, as had been the case so often before. In a twist of fate, Gehenna Lord Adelman made his entrance onto the battlefield, declaring himself Zalario's opponent. Zalario, still smug, doubted an additional adversary could alter the course of the battle. Despite this, Zalario couldn't help but feel irked by the unforeseen developments, though his confidence remained unshaken. However, the situation took another unexpected turn with the arrival of Gehenna Paladin Albert, Adelman's formidable ally, clad in mythical graded gear bestowed by Rimuru and exuding the formidable aura of a master swordsman. Zalario's demeanor shifted noticeably, surprised by the presence of such a skilled swordsman within the Labyrinth's ranks. His unease grew as Gehenna Dragon Venti joined the fray, her graceful demeanor belying her potent strength. With 3 high-level adversaries now facing him, Zalario realized that even if victory was within reach, it would come at the cost of revealing his full strength and abilities. Moreover, facing so many adversaries at once made the prospect of winning uncertain. The most pressing concern, however, was the absence of any updates from Dino. As long as Dino had not succeeded in taking Ramrus away, Zalario's foes, no matter how many times they were killed, would resurrect. Yet Zalario found himself compelled to press on with the attack, for it was part of Feldway's strategy, and his role was to distract the Labyrinth's defenses. Zalario braced himself, ready to reveal his true power and do whatever it took to hold these adversaries back, ensuring the success of his allies on the other battlefronts. However, at that moment, Adelman unveiled a sinister grin, stating he was originally the guardian of the 70th floor, which was where Masayuki was located. He then questioned Zalario's awareness of why he could bypass the 70th floor's defenses to arrive here, casting a shadow of foreboding over Zalario. Adelman went on to reveal that the foolish invader of the 70th level had been slain by Velgrian-sama, leaving no role for him there, hence his presence here to provide support. Adelman's bones clacked together in laughter. Despite hearing this, Zalario's expression barely changed. The failure of the plan to assassinate Masayuki seemed irrelevant to him. What mattered was Dino's status. Cherries couldn't help but mock Zalario for seemingly ignoring Velgrine's power. However, Cherries also deduced that Zalario was still concealing his full strength. Adelman, more cunning, pointed out that ensuring Ramrus-sama's safety was his first priority upon awakening and before rushing to provide support. However, under Zijin's protection, harming Ramrus was impossible. Adelman's assertion relieved the Labyrinth's defenders. Knowing Ramrus-sama was unharmed meant they could concentrate on the enemy before them. It was at this juncture that Zalario felt a true sense of defeat looming. Hearing Zijin's name again made it clear that relying on the lazy man Dino was futile. As if timing his communication perfectly, Dino conveyed his message. With a nonchalant remark, he announced his own failure and intention to flee, adding that Cornu was likely eliminated by Velgrind, advising Zalario to make a quick escape as well. After delivering his message, Dino severed the connection, prompting a bitter smile from Zalario. Despite his reluctance, retreat was the only option left. Faced with what he considered mere rabble, the humiliation of having to withdraw was something Zalario took note of. Employing teleportation magic, he transported his subordinates away. Witnessing this, the remaining defenders reveled in the joy of successfully protecting the labyrinth. With the threat within the labyrinth dissipated, Zijin lifted his fantasy world power, and Beretta gently placed the still sleeping Ramrus on a bench. Beretta and Zijin then reflected on Dino's escape, with Beretta revealing the truth. Dino's successful revival and escape were only possible due to Ramrus-sama's mercy, sparing Dino as a friend. Zijin had been aware of Dino's resurrection bracelet but chose to conduct an experiment to confirm that even if the wearer harbored hostility towards Ramrus, the labyrinth's protection would still hold true. Clearly, the outcome was as expected. Dino remained alive and made his getaway. Both them agreed that this was the will of Ramrus-sama. For Zijin, as long as Ramrus-sama was safely guarded, the battle was won. Moreover, with Dino not only choosing to flee but also taking his companions with him from the battlefield, there was no need to pursue them further. It was precisely because of Ramrus's protection that the labyrinth's defensive battle saw no casualties. In Zijin's view, even a victory would be considered a failure if there had been any sacrifices. Nodding to each other, Zijin and Beretta decided that they must maintain a more vigilant guard from now on. Thus, the labyrinth's battle officially came to an end. The scene shifts back to the conversation between Rimuru and Ramrus, with Ramrus reporting the entire process of the labyrinth crisis and stretching languidly, indicating she too had faced a great crisis. It's worth mentioning that when Rimuru returned, Ramrus was comfortably asleep, murmuring that she would use all her 48 finishing moves on the lazy Dino. Rimuru responded with a forced smile, relieved that Ramrus was unharmed. Ramrus, as usual, began to act tough once she calmed down, claiming that if she had used her real power, she could have easily taken down someone like Dino. Rimuru suggested that Dino might not have truly intended to betray them, considering Dino's rather clumsy nature. This was a candid observation from Rimuru. When Dino first arrived at the Monster Federation, he made no secret of being Guy's spy, possibly foreseeing trouble ahead and thus using various means to ensure he was under surveillance from the start. Rimuru also had an inkling as to why Dino might have betrayed them, suspecting Dino could have been influenced by the ultimate skill Lord of Justice, hence following Feldway's orders unknowingly. This implied that Dino possessed some form of angelic ultimate skill. After all, evolving a unique skill sloth to ultimate skill during battle was almost impossible, indicating Dino had means to make such a transformation possible. Seal agreed with Rimuru's perspective, noting that evolution during combat was ordinarily implausible. Yet, strangely, this assertion seemed entirely unconvincing coming from Seal. However, Seal could relate to this situation. Before evolving into Manas Seal, Lord of Wisdom also fell under the sway of Lord of Justice, leading to repeated misjudgments in combat. Fortunately, Rimuru had always concealed this ultimate skill, preventing it from being discovered and fully dominated, a scenario too grim to contemplate. Reflecting on these thoughts, Rimuru couldn't help but shudder. Seal sensed Rimuru's unease and dismissed the speculative concerns as futile, interrupting Rimuru's wild conjectures. Rimuru then comforted Beretta and others, who were mired in self-blame. He shared openly about Manas Michael's abilities and the battle's outcomes. Following discussions, they concluded that Dino might have been manipulated, and Feldway and his cohorts were definitively the enemies. Actions moving forward would be based on this understanding, with everyone on high alert. Thus, the grand battle against the Empire officially ended, and the Monster Federation commenced a grand feast. Alright, that's all for this video. The war with the Eastern Empire has concluded for now, marking a comprehensive victory for Rimuru and his allies. However, the shadowy figures of Manas Michael and Feldway had not sustained significant losses. The even more thrilling Tama Great War looms on the horizon. But before that, we have a series of summarizing episodes planned, including a detailed analysis of Rimuru and his subordinates' overall combat strength, an exploration of the nature of skills within the TenSura world, the story between Guy and Rudra, and Velgrine's journey in search of Rudra's soul. We aim to present these topics as clearly and engagingly as possible. In our next episode, we will delve into Rimuru's investigation into the secret actions Seal had taken regarding Rimuru's subordinates, and discuss the essence of skills in the TenSura world. The upcoming episode will also feature a segment of light-hearted daily life stories, promising content that's both entertaining and fascinating. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. See you in the next one.